What if the most heroic life you could live is one that no one ever remembers? A life lived without grand achievements, without fame, without the world ever taking notice. A life of quiet disappointments, of small private victories, and of a stoic, unwavering dedication to a single, simple passion. In our culture of noise, of viral moments, and public validation, such a life is often seen as a failure, a tragedy. But what if it's the most profound kind of success? Today, we are not talking about a king or a conqueror or a visionary genius. We are talking about a man named William Stoner. The central problem that John Williams' masterpiece, Stoner, addresses is a silent question that haunts the modern soul. What is a good life? Our world provides a clear, loud, and unforgiving answer. A good life is one of accomplishment, of influence, of wealth and recognition. It is a life that leaves a mark, a life that can be quantified in followers, in headlines, in legacy. By this metric, the life of William Stoner, the protagonist of this staggering novel, is an unmitigated failure. He is born to poor dirt farmers. He becomes a low-level university professor who never rises above the rank of assistant professor. His marriage is a decades-long exercise in quiet misery. He has one great love, which he is forced to relinquish. His relationship with his only daughter is fraught with pain and distance. He writes one academic book that is quickly forgotten. And then he dies. On the surface, his story is a bleak chronicle of obscurity. So why has this novel, rescued from oblivion decades after its publication, been called the greatest American novel you've never heard of? Why do readers find themselves so profoundly moved, so fundamentally changed by the story of this unremarkable man? If the grand promise of Stoner is that it offers a different answer to the question of a good life. It is a quiet, devastating, and beautiful testament to the power of inner integrity. It suggests that the true measure of a life is not what the world gives to you, but what you are obligated to give to the things you love. Be it a person, a poem, or your work. This book doesn't offer you a path to happiness or success. It offers you something far more valuable, a glimpse of the profound dignity that can be found in endurance, in quiet passion, and in the simple, unwavering courage to be oneself in a world that asks you to be anything but. This is not just a summary of a novel. It is an introduction to a character who will become a part of you, a quiet companion who will walk with you long after you've turned the final page. William Stoner's story begins on a small, unforgiving farm in central Missouri in 1891. His parents are as stoic and weathered as the land they work. His father at 30 looks 50, stooped by labor, gazing, without hope at the arid patch of land that sustained the family from one year to the next. His mother regards her life, patiently, as if it were a long moment that she had to endure. From the age of 6, Stoner's life is one of duty, milking bony cows, slopping pigs, his shoulders already beginning to stoop by 17 beneath the weight of his occupation. It is a life bound by the necessity of toil, a household so quiet that the only sounds are the wary movement of a body in a chair and the soft creak of aging timber. He expects nothing more than to take over the farm, for the cycle of labor to continue until it consumes him, as it consumed his parents. But one evening his father speaks words that will unknowingly alter the universe. County agent come by last week. Says they have a new school at the university in Columbia. They call it a college of agriculture. Says he thinks you ought to go. This suggestion is not born of a dream for a better life in the modern sense, but from a pragmatic, desperate hope. The land is getting harder to work. Maybe the university has new ideas, new ways of doing things. In a rare, halting speech, Stoner's father reveals a lifetime of unspoken struggle. Sometimes when I'm working the field, I get to thinking, you go on to the university come fall. Your ma and me will manage. And so, at 19 years old, William Stoner enters the University of Missouri to study agriculture, intending to return to the farm with knowledge that might persuade the soil to be a little less cruel. He is an awkward, serious young man in a black broadcloth suit, carrying the weight of his family's sacrifice with him. He does his work at the university as he does his work on the farm, thoroughly, conscientiously, with neither pleasure nor distress. The science of soil chemistry catches his interest in a general way. But then he encounters something else. A required course, a survey of English literature, that troubles and disquiets him in a way nothing has before. The instructor is a man named Archer Sloan, feared and disliked by most students, a man who teaches with a seeming disdain, as if the gulf between his knowledge and what he could possibly convey was too vast to bridge. One day Sloane is leading the class through the sonnets of Shakespeare. The students are edgy and puzzled. Sloane reads aloud the 73rd sonnet. That time of year thou mayst in me behold, when yellow leaves or none or few do hang. His eyes rove the room. What does the sonnet mean? He asks. There is no answer. He turns his gaze upon Stoner. Mr. Stoner, what does the sonnet mean? William Stoner, the farm boy, the future farmer, swallows and tries to open his mouth. He cannot speak. Sloane's voice becomes dry, laced with a theatrical irony. It is a sonnet, Mr. Stoner, a poetical composition of 14 lines. Its author is William Shakespeare, a poet who is dead, but who nevertheless occupies a position of some importance in the minds of a few. Then Sloane's eyes go blank. He recites the poem again, and this time his voice deepens and softens, as if the words have become a part of him. When he finishes, he repeats the final couplet, his voice flat once more. This thou perceivest, which makes thy love more strong, to love that well which thou must leave ere long. Sloane's eyes come back to Stoner. Mr. Shakespeare speaks to you across 300 years. Mr. Stoner, do you hear him? And in that moment, something inside William Stoner breaks open. The world shifts. He becomes minutely aware of his own body, of the light in the room, of the blood flowing invisibly through his own veins. The words are no longer just words on a page. They are a living force, a direct communication from a dead man across 3 centuries. He looks at Archer Sloane and tries to explain what it means, but he cannot finish. It means, he says, and trails off. Sloane nods and dismisses the class. That single moment is the beginning of Stoner's true life. He drops his science courses. He immerses himself in literature, in philosophy, in history. He discovers a love so profound, so all-consuming, that it redefines his entire existence. Near the end of his studies, Archer Sloane calls him into his office and asks about his future plans. Stoner is uncertain. He has never thought beyond returning to the farm, a path he now knows he cannot take. It is then that Sloane delivers the simple, stunning truth. But don't you know, Mr. Stoner? Sloane asks, his voice suddenly gentle. Don't you understand about yourself yet? You're going to be a teacher. Stoner is suspended, as if in wide air. How can you tell? He asks. Sloane's answer is the key that unlocks the rest of the novel, the theme that will echo through every joy and every sorrow of William Stoner's life. It's love, Mr. Stoner, Sloane says cheerfully. You are in love. It's as simple as that. He is in love with literature, with the pursuit of knowledge, with the life of the mind. And this love, this calling, becomes the fixed point in his turning world. He tells his parents he will not be returning to the farm. It is a scene of heartbreaking restraint. His father, a man of few words and deep, collused feeling, finally says, if you think you ought to stay here and study your books, then that's what you ought to do. Your ma and me can manage. Stoner has found his life's work. But a life, he will soon learn, is more than just its work. Having found his calling, Stoner enters the next phase of his life with a sense of purpose. But the world, as it always does, intrudes. He falls in love, or what he believes to be love, with a young woman named Edith Bostwick. He first sees her at a faculty reception, a vision of delicate, fragile beauty, tall and slender and fair, dressed in a gown of blue-watered silk. He is immediately assailed by a consciousness of his own heavy clumsiness. Edith is the product of a specific time in class. As the narrator explains, she was educated upon the premise that she would be protected from the gross events that life might thrust in her way, and upon the premise that she had no other duty than to be a graceful and accomplished accessory to that protection. Her moral training was almost entirely sexual, yet indirectly so, a series of prohibitions that taught her nothing of her own body or desires, but filled her with a deep, unspoken terror of them. She is, in essence, a beautiful, hollow vessel, groomed for a life of protected uselessness. Stoner, a man of the earth, a man of earnest, clumsy sincerity, sees in her fragility a mystery he longs to understand and a helplessness he longs to protect. He sees what he wants to see. Their courtship is a study in mutual misunderstanding. After one strange, intense conversation where she confesses the story of her life in a torrent of words, as if from an invisible book, they fall into a stilted, formal pattern. He is unable to draw her out of her reserve, and she seems to exist in a state of pale, passive confusion. Yet Stoner, blinded by his idealized vision, proposes marriage. He is surprised at her equanimity, at the cool, deliberative look she gives him before falling back into a mask of unreal surprise. The marriage is a disaster from the very first night. On their honeymoon in St. Louis, Edith becomes almost physically ill with anxiety. On their wedding night, she feigns a headache, and Stoner, like other new husbands of whom he had heard and at whose expense he had at one time or another made jokes, spends the night curled on a small sofa. The next day things seem better. But that evening, after a bottle of champagne, when he gently pulls her toward the bedroom, her body stiffens with a quick, hard resistance. The scene that follows is one of the most painful in the book, a quiet portrait of sexual trauma and incompatibility. In the unlit bedroom, Edith turns away from him. With a quick movement, she loosens her dress. "Go in the other room," she says in a flat voice. "I'll be ready in a minute." When he returns, she is in bed, covers pulled to her chin, her eyes closed, a thin frown on her forehead. Silently, as if she were asleep, Stoner undressed and got into bed beside her. He put his hand upon her and felt beneath the thin cloth of her nightgown the flesh he had longed for. He moved his hand upon her. She did not stir, her frown deepened. Again he spoke, saying her name to silence. Then he moved his body upon her, gentle in his clumsiness. When he touched the softness of her thighs, she turned her head sharply away and lifted her arm to cover her eyes. She made no sound. Afterward she flees to the bathroom, and he hears her retch loudly and agonizingly. Her only explanation: "It was the champagne. I shouldn't have had the second glass." Within a month, Stoner knows his marriage is a failure. Within a year, he stops hoping it will improve. Their life together becomes a long, cold truce. They share a bed out of unspoken stubbornness, but intimacy is a form of violation for her and a source of guilt and regret for him. Edith's repressed nature, her deep-seated fears and dissatisfactions, curdle into a passive-aggressive weapon. She cannot confront him, but she finds ways to punish him, to control him, to slowly dismantle his world. This long, quiet war becomes the backdrop for much of Stoner's life, a source of profound and enduring sorrow. Yet, it is against this bleak backdrop that Stoner's character is forged. His stoicism, his patience, and his unwavering commitment to his work become his only refuge. It is in the university, in his study, and in the classroom that he finds the meaning his personal life cannot provide. His academic career begins, and with it, he forms the few crucial friendships of his life. He and two other young instructors, the brilliant and cynical David Masters and the affable but mediocre Gordon Finch, begin a ritual of meeting for beers on Friday afternoons. It is during one of these meetings that Masters delivers a speech that defines the philosophical core of the book. He holds up a hard-boiled egg and asks if they've ever considered the true nature of the university. It is not, he says, a great repository of truth. It is an asylum. Masters declares, a rest home for the infirm, the aged, the discontent, and the otherwise incompetent. You too, he says, turning to Stoner, err among the infirm. You are the dreamer, the madman in a matter world. You think there's something here, something to find. Well, in the world you'd learn soon enough. You two are cut out for failure. You'd let it chew you up and spit you out, and you'd lie there wondering what was wrong. Because you'd always expect the world to be something it wasn't, something it had no wish to be. This speech is a prophecy. Stoner is indeed a dreamer, an idealist, and his idealism will be tested not by the grand forces of history, but by the petty politics of his own department. When World War I breaks out, his friends Finch and Masters enlist. Stoner, however, after a deep struggle, chooses to stay. His mentor, Archer Sloan, tells him, "You must remember what you are and what you have chosen to become. There are wars and defeats and victories of the human race that are not military. The scholar should not be asked to destroy what he has aimed his life to build." Stoner claims a deferment not out of fear, but out of a profound loyalty to his calling. He understands that his war is a different kind of war, a quiet, lifelong battle to preserve the traditions of literature and learning. It is his first great act of defining himself against the world's expectations. He pays a price for it. His friend Dave Masters is killed in France, and Stoner, a man who chose books over battle, is left to fight his own wars on the small, vicious battleground of university life. His great antagonist arrives in the form of Hollis Lomax, a charismatic, crippled, and deeply manipulative scholar who eventually becomes the head of his department. Lomax is everything Stoner is not: politically savvy, dramatically eloquent, and utterly ruthless. Their conflict comes to a head over a student named Charles Walker, a disabled and deeply dishonest young man whom Lomax champions. Stoner recognizes Walker as a fraud, a person fundamentally unsuited to the life of a scholar. The climactic scene of the novel is not a battle or a chase, but an oral examination. In a stuffy basement room, Stoner systematically and mercilessly exposes Walker's ignorance. Lomax and Walker have prepared a brilliant performance on Walker's supposed area of expertise, but Stoner ignores it. Instead, he asks simple fundamental questions about English literature. Name 3 medieval dramas, he asks. Walker can only name one. Name some plays of Marlowe. Walker names 2, one of them incorrectly. The examination is a tour de force of quiet, intellectual violence. Stoner is not cruel, he is relentless. He is defending the integrity of his profession, the very values of the university he loves. He knows he is destroying this young man's career, and he knows he will pay a terrible price for it. Lomax is furious. Stoner holds his ground and fails Walker. The consequences are swift and brutal. Lomax, now the department chair, retaliates. He can't fire Stoner, who has tenure, but he can condemn him to a kind of professional death. He strips Stoner of all his advanced and graduate courses, assigning him a crushing load of 4 sections of introductory freshman composition. It is the academic equivalent of being sent to the salt mines. It is a punishment designed to break his spirit, to crush his love for his work. But Lomax, like the world, misunderstands the nature of William Stoner. For a time, Stoner is beaten down. A kind of lethargy descends upon him. His teaching becomes rote. The years pass in a gray haze. His marriage remains a cold void, and his relationship with his daughter Grace becomes the site of his greatest pain. Edith, in her own twisted way, turns her frustration onto Grace, transforming the quiet, intelligent child into a pawn in her unending war with her husband. Stoner watches helpless as his daughter's spirit is slowly crushed. And yet, it is in this period of bleakest despair that Stoner finds a new source of life. He falls in love, truly and deeply, for the first and only time. She is Catherine Driscoll, a young instructor in his department, a woman he had first met in one of his seminars. Their affair begins slowly, tentatively. It is a secret, a small world of their own carved out of the hostile universe of the university. In Catherine's small, dim apartment, Stoner finds a wholeness he has never known. Theirs is not just a physical passion, it is a profound intellectual and emotional communion. Lust and learning, Catherine calls it, and for Stoner, the two become inseparable. For a brief, brilliant summer, he is happy. He experiences a deep sensuality that renewed itself from moment to moment. He learns that love is not an end, but a process through which one person attempts to know another. This love, however, is doomed. The affair becomes known. The gossip starts. Gordon Finch, now the dean, warns him of the danger. The real threat, however, comes from Hollis Lomax, who sees in the affair the perfect weapon to finally destroy his enemy. Lomax doesn't attack Stoner directly. He threatens to fire Catherine, to ruin her career under the guise of a morals charge. Stoner is faced with an impossible choice: to fight and see the woman he loves crucified in a public scandal, or to surrender. They talk about running away, about starting a new life somewhere else. But Stoner knows the truth. It isn't Edith or even Grace that keeps me here, he tells Catherine. It isn't the scandal or the hurt. It's simply the destruction of ourselves, of what we do. We would be nothing. He chooses to let her go, to sacrifice his only happiness to preserve what he sees as their essential selves, their integrity as scholars. Catherine leaves without a word. She packs her bags one night and is gone. Stoner never sees her again. The loss is absolute. A deep illness follows, a fever that leaves him gaunt, aged, and partially deaf. The world sees a broken man. The years that follow are a slow, quiet decline. He becomes a campus character, a mythic, eccentric figure. His feud with Lomax is the stuff of legend. His marriage to Edith settles into a final, wary truce, a kind of forgiveness born of shared defeat. He watches his daughter Grace's life spiral into alcoholism and despair. And yet, through it all, something in Stoner endures. He continues to teach. The post-World War II years bring a new kind of student to the university, mature, serious veterans. And for a few brief, shining years, his teaching becomes the thing he always dreamed it could be. It is the happiest time of his life. But his body is failing. He is diagnosed with cancer. The final pages of the novel describe his slow fade from the world. He lies in his small back room, the world shrinking to the view from his window. He thinks back on his life, on its failures and its few, precious joys. He thinks of his parents, of Edith, of his daughter Grace, of Archer Sloane, of his one true love, Catherine. He contemplates the failure that his life must appear to be. He had wanted friendship, he had wanted love, he had wanted to be a good teacher. In his own eyes, he had largely failed. What did you expect? He asks himself, and as he lies dying, a kind of joy comes over him. He was himself, and he knew what he had been. His hand reaches out and finds a book on his bedside table. It is his own book, the one academic work he had published, long faded and forgotten. He opened the book, and as he did so it became not his own. He let his fingers riffle through the pages and felt a tingling, as if those pages were alive on. The fingers loosened, and the book they had held moved slowly and then swiftly across the still body and fell into the silence of the room. What makes Stoner so radically different, so unforgettable, is its profound and unwavering commitment to the truth of an ordinary life. In an age of literature filled with spies, wizards, and larger-than-life heroes, John Williams gives us a man whose greatest battles are fought in the silence of his own study, in the strained quiet of his own living room, and in the hushed halls of a Midwestern university. This book is a radical act of anti-drama. It finds its immense power not in what happens, but in what is endured. It is a novel built on understatement, on the heartbreaking beauty of unspoken feelings and quiet gestures. The unique essence of Stoner is its celebration of a different kind of heroism, the heroism of integrity. Stoner's victory is not that he wins, but that he does not yield on the things that matter most to him: his love for learning and his duty to its truth. This book is for anyone who has ever felt that the most important parts of their life are the invisible parts. It is for the teacher, the scholar, the reader. It's for the person who finds solace in their work, who has ever loved a book more than a person, or who has found in a book a love as real as any other. It is for the introvert, the quiet observer, and anyone who has ever suspected that there is a universe of meaning in a life the world would call small. This book is absolutely not for the reader who requires a fast-paced plot, a thrilling climax, or a happy ending. It is a slow, meditative, and often deeply sad novel. Its rewards are not of the adrenaline-fueled variety. They are quiet, they are deep, and they are permanent. The single most valuable takeaway a reader will be left with is a re-evaluation of what it means to live a successful life. Stoner leaves you with a quiet, powerful affirmation that to love something truly, to dedicate your life to it with honesty and patience, is to have lived a life of immense and heroic meaning, even if no one else ever knows. That life no one will ever remember. That was the life of William Stoner. But after you read this novel, it is a life you will never forget. You will see Stoner in the quiet dedication of a teacher, in the stoic face of a stranger on the bus, and sometimes, if you are honest, you will see him in the mirror. This book is more than a story. It is a profound and deeply moving meditation on the quiet sorrows and secret triumphs that make up a human life. It doesn't offer answers or escape. It offers something better: companionship. It offers the quiet acknowledgement that your own small, private struggles are worthy of the greatest literature. This summary is just the map, a faint tracing of the contours of Stoner's world. To truly understand, you have to undertake the journey yourself. You have to let John Williams's clean, precise, and heartbreakingly beautiful prose wash over you. You have to walk alongside Stoner through his long winter and feel the brief, brilliant warmth of his summer. So, if you are ready for a book that will not flatter you or entertain you in the usual ways, but will instead see you and stay with you and change the way you see the world, then your next step is clear. The link to purchase Stoner is in the description below. Invest in this experience. You will not be the same. And while you're down there, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more deep dives into the books that shape our lives. Thank you for listening.